Good afternoon. Happy Thursday. Thank you for joining us for this wonderful Thirsty Thursday episode. This one is going to be very, very cool. This is a really cool opportunity for everybody who's viewing to get to learn a little bit about a spirit that I think many Americans are probably not very familiar with. Today, I am going to be joined by Taka Amano of the American Shochu Company, located in Frederick, Maryland, making a very unique spirit that was once considered to be a Japanese spirit, and we're looking forward to that. Before we kick off, I do want to let you know that for this weekend, again, just like last weekend, Maryland's distilleries are open for business for outdoor service if they offer that. They are also open for business for curbside pickup, carry out, and a lot of them are offering delivery. So if you have any desire for Maryland spirits this week, please support your local distillery. Reach out to them and find out how you can get their spirits directly in your house. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Taka. Taka, thank you for joining us this afternoon. How are you?
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this for a while. You and I talked almost 2 years ago during the Maryland Spirits Month. We did a chat, and you had a lot to say about Shochu and what this spirit is, and I'm just so looking forward to giving you the platform to talk all about it today and kind of inform everyone.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Jim.
So let me just say before we get started, Taka's here to answer questions, take comments. He's going to be showing off some really cool cocktails, and I'm really excited about this. If you have questions or comments, please do not hesitate to put them into the comments there. We'll pick those up. We'll show some on the display, and we'll answer anything that you might have. Taka, it's all you, buddy.
All right, appreciate it. So first of all, what are we talking about here? This is Shochu. Shochu is the other traditional Japanese spirit, the not sake. We are making Shochu here in Frederick, Maryland, at the only Shochu distillery, authentic Shochu distillery in North America. And we've been doing this for a few years now, but we really got the product out on the market last year. We ended up being the top-selling Maryland-made brand in the Montgomery County liquor stores in 2019. And we were just about to gather some investment and expand the distillery, increase our production capacity, and then COVID hit. But we're still going to do it. And just to let people know, we are delivering now because in Maryland, the laws have been changed for COVID, and distilleries like us are able to deliver to homes. So if you place an order with us online, I will bring the bottle to you. I'm actually going on a run up into northern Montgomery County later after this live event is over. So let's talk a little bit about cocktails, shall we? So until COVID hit, I was selling a lot of, I was doing a lot of farmers markets and events where I was introducing the product to customers. And our most, our signature cocktail is the Tokyo Fling. So I'm going to mix up one of those for you, and we'll take a look. So Tokyo Fling is made with pomegranate juice, 7-Up, and umai shochu. So got a little ice here, and we'll start with the. I like to start with the pomegranate because that it coats the glass the most. But what we're looking at is 1 to 2 to 1. So if I do half an ounce of pomegranate, so 2 parts. So an ounce here of the 7-Up, and then half an ounce. This will make a small cocktail, but with this one, it's a clear cocktail, so I like to stir it rather than shake. And put it in and since I'm at home, I can't do this at farmers markets, but since I'm at home, we'll give it a little bit of Peychaud's bitters, stuff that you use in Sazeracs. And I think this is the only other thing that I know of to use Peychaud's bitters in. But so, give a nice stir here. and we'll give it a little twist. So there you go. This is a Tokyo Fling. Again, it's 1 part pomegranate, 2 parts 7-Up, and 1 part Umai Shochu. I like to tell people that we're eventually going to come out. I keep on threatening this. We're going to come out with a T-shirt that says "I had a Tokyo Fling," and we're actually planning on putting this in a canned ready-to-drink cocktail. So that's a Tokyo Fling.
That's cool news. So for people who maybe new to the shochu thing, I know that this is a story that you tell all the time. It's something that you get asked at every farmer's market or event that you present your spirits. What's the background of this spirit? What is this really neat thing? I mean, I'm reading on the label, it says barley shochu. So what does this mean, and how is it made compared to some of the other spirits people may be familiar with?
So shochu, again, is the other traditional Japanese spirit. Everybody knows sake, but they actually sell more shochu in Japan than sake the last 15 years. And the reason for that is it became very popular in cocktails about, now 16 years now. 16 years ago in 2004. And so cocktails like this, where this is about a 6% alcohol drink, very popular. It's the most common thing that you'll get in a restaurant in Japan. If you're not drinking beer, you're probably drinking a shochu cocktail. Shochu is made from a variety of grains, but the majority of shochu in Japan is made from either barley or sweet potato. And so ours is made with 100% organic barley. I would actually love to use Maryland barley, but as it turns out, Maryland barley right now is all used for chicken feed and seed. And there's nobody making pearl barley that's for human consumption. So going forward, we're having some discussions. It would be great to work with some local farmers that have some locally sourced organic barley to use in our shochu. But so it's its own traditional manufacturing method. And when we started out when we decided to do this, we were the first ones to make shochu in North America. And so there wasn't anybody to look at. I had gone and visited a lot of shochu distilleries in Japan, but the devil's in the details in this kind of thing. And as it turns out, the details are passed along from parent to child, family, generations of family distillers. We're not part of a distilling family, so we don't have any specific details. So we had to come up with our own. I got set up at the Frederick incubator, the biotechnology incubator, and there we developed the process. There were some basics that I found out. I'm then very friendly, I got to know the chairman of the Japan Brewing Society pretty well over the years, and got a lot of advice, and there's even a textbook that's available, but again, it's got the basics but not the details. And so we came up with the process and came up with the prototype. I ended up taking that prototype to Japan, put it in front of the Japan Brewing Society. The chairman and the executive board did a tasting, and they told me, Amano-san, you have shochu. Please sell it in America, because we don't sell a lot of shochu in America. And that was about, I guess it's at this point 3 years ago that we had that conversation. And that is the Umai product that we came up with. So
that's pretty fascinating. Did you have everything that you needed in the American kind of in your own product line? Like everything that you needed to manufacture this product, was it already available here?
All right. So shochu, ours is a very traditional process, authentic shochu. Authentic, I use that word authentic. In Japanese, there's a word called honkaku. Honkaku means authentic. It is actually in Japan a legal term. So there's certain things that you have to do in order to call a shochu a honkaku shochu. And we filled that criteria. One of the things is that we use koji. Now, in our case, we have 4 ingredients and 4 ingredients only. We have organic barley. We use reverse osmosis filtered water. We have yeast, and I import the yeast from Japan. As it turns out, 80% of yeast, the shochu in Japan is made from with this particular yeast that is available through the Japan Brewing Society. So I use that yeast, and I also import koji. So koji is the Japanese word for Aspergillus luchensis. Well, actually, for a particular kind of Aspergillus. People in the industry and people are familiar with koji in things like sake manufacturing and soy sauce, shoyu, soy sauce manufacturing, miso. All these things use koji, but they use a different kind of koji than what we use. So everybody else is using generally Aspergillus oryzae, so what's known as yellow koji. In shochu manufacturing, you use Aspergillus luchensis, and what's known as white koji and also black koji. So Aspergillus luchensis is black koji, Aspergillus luchensis mutated kawachi is white koji. When I went to the USDA in 2015 and told them that I wanted to do this, we were going to start, we were applying for the license to get a distillery to start manufacturing shochu, and I needed to import Aspergillus luchensis. They said to me, you know what? We looked it up. We investigated it. It sounds like black mold. That's a hazardous biological. You can't bring it into the country. And I said, no, okay, so yes, it's called black koji, but it's actually not black mold. Black mold is Aspergillus niger. It's a different organism. This Aspergillus luchensis is something that is a food product, a historic, long-time food product in Japan, used all the time. We talked about it, and they eventually allowed it into the database. So they actually put Aspergillus luchensis into the database for us. And but it's still classified as a hazardous product, and so even though it's not, it's a food product, and it goes through quarantine. It took me 6 months to get it into the country the first time I tried. And so as far as I know, we're probably the only ones doing that convoluted process to bring Aspergillus luchensis into the country. But so those 4 things, that's what goes into shochu.
Are you able to propagate that here, or is that something that you have to bring in each time you want to produce?
You know, as saying that it's a Aspergillus, one can imagine that with a little bit of craftiness, you could probably propagate it. However, I source my koji from, there's about maybe 6 koji houses in Japan. And I have a relationship with one of them. Higuchi Matsunosuke Shoten Koji Shop. Some people in America actually know the Higuchi name. Higuchi-san has actually been to the States several times, and there's a podcast out there if you look it up. Higuchi is Higuchi. But so I have a relationship with them. Some of these relationships that I have in Japan that I've put together over the years, over 10 years, very important to our process, to learning the process, to doing the right thing, having the right materials to use, and then going forward, just being in the community. And so I have a certain amount of responsibility and friendship. And so my commitment is to source from them. Now, having said that, I don't buy a whole lot because I don't need a whole lot. It's Aspergillus that I only use a little bit of at a time. However, I don't really have an intention to propagate it here. So let's do another cocktail, shall we? So this was the Tokyo Fling, nice red drink. It's a very it's like a cosmopolitan type drink, but it's a lot more lighter and easy to drink, I think. But it's a little, as you saw, it's a little bit complicated to make. So let me show you another one. So this is called the cherry blossom. The cherry blossom, as it turns out, when I do farmers markets, when I do events like the Great Frederick Fair, the cherry blossom turns out to be my most popular cocktail. People love the cherry blossom. The cherry blossom is made with umai shochu and pink lemonade. I use Minute Maid pink lemonade. So real simple, right? It's 1 part shochu to 3 parts pink lemonade. Now, I'm going to measure this out, 3 parts, but I'll tell you a trick. So that's 1 part shochu to 3 parts pink lemonade. And in this case, we'll do a nice little shake. Got a lot of ice in there. And we'll, let's see. So, got yourself a cherry blossom. But I'll tell you a trick. If you were to fill a regular glass with ice and you gave it a shot of shochu and then you filled that glass with pink lemonade, don't even have to measure it. That very typically is a 1-to-3 ratio, and it makes the right percentage drink for you. So that, again, that's a 6% alcohol drink. It's called Cherry Blossom, and my most popular drink for people. And that's another kind of shochu highball that kind of typically you would get in Japan. Shochu highballs in Japan, they call those chuhai, C-H-U-H-I is how I like to spell it, chuhais. It stands for shochu highball. So highballs are typically, well, they're in America, they're usually whiskey made mixed with soda. But in Japan, they call pretty much anything mixed with a mixer a highball. They also call them sours. If you mix it with anything with the fruit juice in Japan, they call those sours. And so this would probably be called a lemonade sour, maybe a shochu sour in Japan. But again, we're planning on canning this and putting it out as a ready-to-drink drink. So here's the thing. With umai shochu, you can make a cocktail like this with whatever your favorite mixer is. So you could do it with, with Coke. You could do it with ginger ale. I like to call those a Tokyo Mule, shochu and ginger ale. We can also do it with tonic. Tonic and shochu is a really popular thing. And actually, if you make shochu and tonic and you hit it with a little bit of lavender bitters. So this is Embitterment Bitters. Embitterment, they make organic bitters. They're a DC company. Erica Kazak is the owner of Embitterment. And they make a great bitters. I love their lavender, actually. Shochu tonic with lavender bitters. We call that a lavender geisha. And that is my wife's favorite umai shochu drink. So look for these two, Embitterment Bitters.
And I think the lavender geisha is the next on the cocktail list. But before we go there, you're mentioning canning these cocktails as like a pre-canned product. Is that something that you see traditionally with shochu in Japan?
Right, yeah, good question. So in Japan, they sell more shochu than sake. And one of the reasons is shochu cocktails are pervasive. And again, they call those chuhai. But you can get chuhai in restaurants. They'll mix you up a fresh chuhai for you. You can also get them in cans. And actually, I actually have some here in my fridge. They look like this. So, and as you can see, it says canned chuhai. This one happens to be a Taka product. Taka is one of the probably 2 or 3 largest distilleries in Japan. And you can buy this kind of thing in a convenience store, 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven in Japan is a big, huge business. There's a 7-Eleven on pretty much kind of every other street corner, kind of like we have Starbucks here. So you can buy canned chuhai like this in multitudes of varieties and flavors. You can also get them in vending machines. So canned chuhai and vending machines is a big thing. So people who have traveled to Japan, they often come back to America and talk about how they miss their canned chuhai out of the vending machine. So yeah, thanks for the question. So I'm not going to mix up a lavender geisha, but it's pretty simple, right? Again, it's 1 part shochu, 3 parts tonic, and again, the same trick would hold. You fill up a glass, if you fill up a glass with ice, you give it a shot of shochu, and then fill it with the mixer, you'll get pretty much the right percentage that you want. So you don't even have to measure that. Another one that I really like is our Bloody Maricos. So Bloody Marico is, well, actually, you know what? Before I do that, let's talk about, let's do one more lavender drink. So if you mix tonic and shochu and umai shochu, you get a lavender geisha, and that's a 6% alcohol drink. It's like something a little stronger. And then kind of in the geisha theme, I can mix something called we like to call it geisha vesper. So if you know what a vesper is typically 1 part gin, 1 part vodka, maybe half a part of vermouth, or traditionally Lillet, and with a twist of lemon. That's a vesper, like James Bond made, or that James Bond liked. And so if we make a geisha vesper, we'll do it Japanese style. And so So instead of the, basically it's 1 part gin, 1 part vodka, and half a part of vermouth for a regular vesper. Now what we'll do here is we will take 1 part vodka, and I'm gonna use a Crystal Head vodka here. So 1 part vodka. We'll use let's see. Just use a regular gin. About a Bombay Sapphire. So take a Bombay Sapphire gin. And in this case, I like to use an equal part of the Umai Shochu instead of the vermouth. And we have a little bit of the nice umami aroma that you'll get from the Umai Shochu. And then again, we're mixing a martini, so we want to stir. We don't want to shake. And James Bond said to make the vesper in a goblet, but we'll go with the coupe. And let's give that one this time. Lemon. And there you go. That's oh, shoot. I forgot my lavender. So we should have mixed the lavender, but let's say that we did. So I have a geisha vesper. And on the theme of the, the vesper, the female name drinks, and that's what reminded me of the vesper, the Bloody Mariko. So Mariko is a very common Japanese name. And of course, I'm using it instead of the Bloody Mary or the Bloody Maria. So if you make a Bloody Mary with Umai Shochu and Bloody Mary mix, and what I like is this is George's Mix's Bloody Mary. This happens to be Zatarain's. It's their Cajun version. It's their chili forward Bloody Mary mix. Their original, which is the George's Mix, is mild, and they also have the George's Mix spicy. It's a horseradish forward mix. Absolutely love it. They make the best product. And so George's is a Berlin, Maryland company. So they're also a Maryland company. And Greg David has been a great friend to me as I build up my business. But they make the absolute best Bloody Mary mixes, 100% juice. This one is 86% juice. And makes a fantastic Bloody Mary. So a Bloody Mariko, that's Umai Shochu with a Bloody Mary mix. And I find 1 to 3 works well, or maybe even a little bit more, 2 to 3, 1 to 1 ratio works really nicely for the Bloody Marys. So Bloody Marikos, it's the thing.
So Taka, we're talking about using umai in place of traditional spirits in some of these builds, and also in complementary spirits in some of these builds. What attributes of the flavor profile make it so versatile when it comes to being able to present such a diverse menu of cocktails using just this spirit?
Right. So Shochu famously mixes really well. And they say in Japan that Shochu's flavor profile, its character, retains itself no matter how you mix it. And by no matter, what they mean is whether you drink it straight, or you drink it on the rocks, or with a little bit of water, or even a little bit of hot water. that the character of the shochu sustains through mixing. And I find that it's very much the case. And in our case, we have a very barley forward shochu, even among shochus. One of the comments that I got in Japan, so after that first time I talked about from about 3 years ago, 3 years ago, just at the end of January, I was in Japan again. And this time around, we had two products, the Umai and the Roy's. We'll talk about the Roy's in a moment. But I took him back now that it was all on the market and labeled and bottled, and had both the Japan Brewing Society and a bunch of people that I know, and people I know and people I don't know in Japan, try our product. And it was a lot. Some of the comments, it's a very smooth product. People comment on how smooth it is. And the other comment that I get is how much barley character that we have. And it's got a little bit to do with how we distill. It's a single distill process. And there's a little bit of je ne sais quoi in the fermentation process that goes into it. But we have a very barley forward and koji forward product. And so I think those things give a little bit of character. I like to use it to substitute for vermouth in a lot of cocktails. And it gives some of that, it gives an umami characteristic that adds that kind of character to a cocktail like a martini or like a Manhattan or something like that. So talking about the smoothness, part of the reason that we have the smoothness that we have, we cut heads. So we cut a lot of heads. And as it turns out, based on what standardly is said in the industry, we probably cut 4 or more times more heads than most other distillers. And famously in Japan, they actually don't cut heads. They say mottainai. Mottainai means that's a waste. And Japanese distillers don't cut heads. And so, because they're saying that if you cut heads, you're throwing out ethanol with it, so you're throwing out alcohol, and we don't do that. Mottainai. And so that being the case, and I've asked individual distillers, every time I meet one, I ask them about it, and every single one that I've talked to has said that they don't cut heads. So then arguably, our shochu becomes the cleanest shochu in the world. But part of what happens when you cut heads is you eliminate a lot of the harshness of the spirit. And so that's part of the reason why we have that smooth thing going on.
Was that something you elected to do based on your preference for the spirit, or was that something that you thought that the market would be more open to trying?
Right. So, when we started making it and I was coming up with the process, I discussed it quite a bit with my wife. Lynn is a BS Biology from UNC Chapel Hill, pre-med. She's a scientist of the team. We talked about these things a lot. And but what we said, as you know, we do organic everything. We use organic barley and reverse osmosis water. We wanted to do things right. And we wanted to do things, if we were going to do it, we wanted to do something that people could enjoy and could feel good about. And the cutting heads part was part of it. Now, when you're a distiller, you make a decision of when to cut heads. And what I did at the beginning, I would taste it. As it starts distilling, as it starts dripping, I would smell it. I would taste it. I would taste it, spit it out. This is poison. And I would time it, and I would say, okay, I would take a certain measured volume of the distilled spirit, and that stuff comes off distill at about 96, 97%. So really high potent stuff. And I would start cutting it, or I would start making decisions. I say, okay, I still taste the heads, I still smell it. And when I found that, I said, okay, this is good. It's clean here. This is where I'm willing to cut it. I found out that that's how much I was cutting. So it's really kind of a personal choice on my part as the original distiller, but it's kind of been a standard in our process. So all of our base spirits are manufactured with the same standard, and we cut a lot of heads in our process. Speaking of organic, so there's one other distiller in Frederick that also does organic, which is McClintock, as you probably know. And so, which is wonderful, right? Because now I have McClintock's gins and whiskeys, and I've got my shochu, so we can come up with a completely 100% organic drink. And one of the drinks that we've discovered recently is, so this is McClintock's Forager gin. And if you make a martini with McClintock's Forager gin and Origami, it's the bomb. You know what? I'm not going to mix one up right now, but I'm calling that. And Tyler and Braden, if you have an opinion about this, let me know. But I thought we might call it the organic Frederick tea. And so I find that one part Forager gin and one part Origami, give it a twist, works really, really nicely.
Sounds like a good collaborative cocktail that needs to start popping up around Frederick once these restaurants are able to reopen.
Looking forward to that one. So, on the theme of martinis, something else that I really like, and I've always had this on mind when we started doing this, but as it turns out, it works really well, is what I call the Matcha Tea. So, matcha, green tea. A Matcha Tea is pretty simple. You take in, so I've got a little bit of green tea here that I've made, and it's not complicated. You could get green tea in a bottle, although that's oftentimes sweetened. For a martini, you probably don't want it sweetened. You could do it sweetened, no matter of taste. But this actually is just a green tea bag. You make it with a green tea bag. If you make it with matcha, will give it a more of a cloudy green color. This is actually a regular green tea that I've used. But if you take some, hold on, let's get some ice. And you take a shot of shochu, my shochu, and we'll measure it this time. So again, 3 parts green tea. You could probably hit that with a little bit of bitters of some kind, but you don't necessarily need it. Actually, this what I just made here is more of a green tea cocktail. But so let me do this. Let me change things up a little bit. So 3 parts green tea and a part of my shochu makes for just kind of a standard green tea chuhai. But let me change it up. If I do a my shochu, 1 part, so that's 1.5 ounces jigger there. Do just 1 part green tea, and then we take the vodka again. So take the vodka. So I have 1 part vodka, 1 part of my shochu, and 1 part green tea. And this one we could probably have shaken, but you have yourself a matcha tea or green tea martini, and then so. I kind of went backwards on the order there, but so that's martini made with green tea, and it's kind of a nice thing, it's in theme for the Japanese product. You could also just make a similar kind of thing with a bottled tea, and this is Honest Tea, which is a local tea, right? It's originally developed in Bethesda. It's now part of Coca-Cola, I understand, but it's an organic green tea. And this one is less sweet than a lot of the bottled green teas out there. Another one I like is the Arizona green tea, and this one is, I think, the ginseng and honey. This would work really nicely also. You take 1 part shochu, 3 parts green tea, or maybe go a little bit heavier on the shochu, and you'll have yourself a nice green tea highball. We call those in Japan ryokucha hai. Ryokucha is green tea in Japanese, so ryokucha hai, and you'll see that in menus in Japan often. So Another thing you can do is you can take the shochu, and it's usually about 1-to-1, maybe a little less in the shochu. You take some shochu and you give it some hot water. It makes for a nice toddy-like drink. It's a little hot now, but especially in the wintertime, it's really nice. It's my wife's second favorite way to drink shochu.
So you mentioned that you have the umai, and you were also showing the label for the Roy's Demon. What are we looking at in comparison between these two products? I feel like the first time you and I spoke about Shochu, you had a trick up your sleeve about a higher proofed product, and I'm guessing that's what this is.
Back then, I think we were talking about, I was saying that, I'd come up with a higher proof product. So shochu traditionally in Japan is bottled at 25% alcohol, or sometimes even 20% alcohol. In the United States, very typically, we bottle at 24%, and there's some statutory reason, legal reasons why we do 24%. But so our umai shochu is bottled at 24%, and it's a very standard product. It makes for a really smooth drink, and like I say, it's a standard percentage for shochu in Japan. However, a higher proof, a lot of times, and especially bartenders, mixologists, ask for a higher proof shochu. And so I came up with this Roy's Demon. Roy's Demon is a 40% ABV, alcohol by volume product. So it's a higher proof. It makes for a stronger barley flavor. I like to say that it's my whiskey drinker shochu. Roy was, people ask me if I'm Roy. I'm not Roy, I'm Taka. Roy was my father, actually. So his name was Ryuichiro, which was a big mouthful. He came to New York with his family, that would be us, back in 1972, I think it was. So early 70s, we moved to Manhattan, and my dad was a salesperson, Japanese salesperson for a big conglomerate Japanese company. It was a chemical manufacturing company. The man was 6 foot tall, spoke a bunch of languages. I think it was 6 languages, and formidable guy, but he was kind of typically Japanese and had a shy aspect to him. And so, and his name was Ryuichiro. Nobody could say his name, so they called him Roy. He would, at his sales calls, that shyness part, he would sit there and fold Origami Demons. Origami Demons that look like this. You can see that, right? And then he would give them to his customers at the end of the sales call. He got to be known for those. And Roy's Demons, he would make these, real big. He'd put them on, customers would put them on their walls. And so that's what a Roy's Demon is. It's on the back of the bottle. And and my dad was a typical Japanese businessman. He liked his drink. He was a whiskey drinker. So I like to say this is my tribute to my dad. It's a whiskey drinker shochu. The label, beautiful label, right? Love this label. My son, great Amano, he did that label for me. As you can see, we love so I like to say, it's really, you have to buy 4 to a set if you really want to display it. You see that in my display. But so that's the Roy's. And so being a whiskey drinker, you can drink this straight. It's got a really nice barley flavor. It's different. It's not a whiskey. It's not barrel. It's not aged. But it's really, really smooth still. And you can either drink it straight, or I like to do Roy's on the rocks. There's a second version. I don't know if you can see this, but you can see that one says first edition private reserve. We only made 100 of these. And so, Roy's is only available for the most part in Montgomery County. I will bring it to you. But Roy's in general is limited edition. But the private reserve is really limited, and we only made 100 of them, and we only have so many left over of them. But we're selling those through the Montgomery County, actually you can't get private reserve in the liquor stores. You can only get the regular Roy's in the liquor stores. But we're selling them in the liquor stores, Montgomery County liquor stores, Maryland, DC, and then I will bring you a bottle of either regular Roy's or private reserve or mine if you order online. The online ordering thing, if you go on our on my website, there's buttons on there. Beer Me is how we do our online ordering. And shout out to True Respite Distillery, a brewery. They came up with this Beer Me web app and has made it available to the rest of us in the industry for no charge. It's fabulous what they're doing for us and giving us a kind of a very elegant way to be able to offer a product online. And so just check it out. Check out the online ordering. And let's see. So let's mix a couple of, or maybe at least one Roy's cocktail. So I told you it's basically an on the rocks or with a little bit of water kind of drink. But as it turns out, it makes really good cocktails. And mixologists and bartenders tell me that it makes good cocktails. My favorite cocktail, so I'm a Manhattan guy. I love Manhattans. I love Manhattans before Manhattans became cool again. But so I figured, I've got myself a whiskey-like drink. Let's see if we can make a Manhattan with it. And as it works out, it works pretty well. So if you take, so in this particular case, so Manhattans, usually I make them 1 part or 2 parts bourbon or bourbon and rye, and 1 part vermouth, right? So in this case, what I found was that 2 to 1 is a little very strong. So I like to do 3 to 1 or even 4 to 1 vermouth. And so 4 to 1 would be, so if you take, actually, so this particular jigger, it's ½ an ounce on the small side and 1 ounce on the other side. So if I go 2 ounces of the Roy's, and ½ an ounce of this.
And Taka, while you're pouring that, I just want to thank you again for sharing that story about your father and the origami. That's fantastic.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's.
I don't think that I caught that when you released the bottle. You teased the artwork, and I know that you had the Origami Demon as part of the overall release package in terms of your visual components. And I don't know that story was something that I picked up on, and I think that's fascinating.
No, thank you. Yeah, it's it was crazy when we figured it out that that's what was going on. And my dad passed 14, almost 15 years ago, I guess. Wish he could have seen this, but it's still really nice. And so this is 3 generations of Amano men in that bottle. So how are we doing on time, Jim?
We're doing just fine. We've got we can wrap whenever you like. We can go another 10 minutes if you like. It's up to you. I know you've got some deliveries to make, so I don't want to hold you too long.
So that's we call that Roy's Miyako. So Miyako means capital city in Japanese. Like Miyako is what they call Tokyo or Kyoto. Kind of a more kind of ancient way of saying city is Miyako. And so, like Manhattan, right? That's why I like to call that a Miyako. And so that's a Roy's Miyako. This is a fantastic drink. You got to try one. And you can just basically make a regular Manhattan, but use the Roy's instead, and go light on the vermouth. Yeah. So you know what? I don't know that we have any questions coming in, so it's fine. But
I don't see any questions. I was actually just going to ask. You've mentioned a couple of times that you're in Montgomery County liquor stores. Are you distributed throughout Maryland? What does your distribution footprint look like, and where can people find your products?
right. So we're in all 26 liquor stores in Montgomery County, and we are also in. So I forget the exact number now, but we're in a bunch of liquor stores in Frederick and elsewhere in Maryland, and we're in a selection of liquor stores in DC. I also have a distributor up in New York that we haven't really exploited that relationship yet. We have product up in New York, and the plan was to start working that. And of course, circumstances have held that back a little bit. But I think as business starts opening up, we'll start working that part of it also. And that's where we're starting. Looking for some partnerships with bigger chains. I think that especially the canned product might make for a nice link up with, say, a Japanese-oriented chain or something like that. There's a ramen shop up in New York that originally was planning to start opening up all around the country. Would make a good partner. So these are the kind of things that we're looking at right now.
That sounds wonderful. And what about visiting you and touring your facility? Do you have an area that's open to the public? Are they able to come out and see what American Shochu is all about?
Right. So we are in a really, really tiny space. And you probably know Derek Brown. He wrote an article for us in VinePair a while back. And when he came up to visit us, he saw the distillery. In the article, he says, in what I am pretty sure is the smallest distillery I've ever been in, Lynn and Taka are doing something totally different. And it's really like that. We're in a really, really tiny space. We're a little cramped in there, and actually we're even more cramped at the moment. But prior to COVID, I was happy to have people come by and visit, and we can do a little bit of tasting and show you what I'm doing. We're doing something totally unique. Our koji process, our fermentation process is something that nobody else is doing. And so I'm happy to have people see it and talk about our processes and our ingredients and that kind of thing. But we'll see how it goes as the world starts to figure out what's happening.
Well, I look forward to seeing more of your products hitting the shelves. I think these ideas for canned cocktails sound fabulous. I think that would be a huge, huge opportunity for you, really, to kind of set the trend here in the States with this wonderful product, get people engaged with something that, there's not a lot of familiarity with yet. And I think you're doing a heck of a job. I think it's really cool to see kind of a one-man mission to turn people's palates over to something that they're not used to. I really like that.
Appreciate that. And getting a lot of help recently. There's been there's been over the years attempts at introducing shochu into the country, but I think what we have that's a little different is that we're making it here, right? And we're locally made, we're craft made, we're organic. The cutting the heads, all of that plays into it. But I've been talking to some of the dignitaries, the influencers, and when I was in Japan in January, I met with Stephen Lyman. So he's been nominated for John Beard Award with his book, all about Japanese drinks. And there's a nice section on shochu in there. I didn't make it back then if you didn't know me, but we know each other now. We've gotten to be very friendly. In the era of COVID, people communicating over Zoom, right? And so he's actually in Japan, but we are now in a kind of a insider meeting on a weekly basis, and so there's that kind of activity going on. I think that we'll give it another shot. We'll give it a strong shot at introducing shochu to America.
Where do people find out more about American Shochu Company and what you're doing?
Yeah, so please go to my website, and then I'm probably about to again revamp my website, but it's americanshochu.com or americanshochucompany.com. Either way will get to me. I send out a lot of information on Instagram, so please follow me on Instagram, and that at least on a weekly basis we'll put up a new cocktail, or I have got a hashtag cooking with Shochu with Taka. And so been doing a lot more cooking recently because we're nearer to the house. But so people, here's a secret about Japanese cooking. Japanese cooking, for the most part, if you use, so traditionally it's a sashisusen, so that's sa is sugar, salt, vinegar, soy sauce, and sake, and miso. So those, there all happen to be some variation of an S name in Japanese. But so that, some combination of those ingredients is what makes Japanese food Japanese food. And you, as you can see, sake is in that list. And traditionally, you cook with sake. The problem with sake is it goes bad. If you open a bottle of sake, you pretty much got to finish it. Otherwise, it's like wine. It'll turn into vinegar. And so it's hard to keep a bottle of sake for cooking in the kitchen. Well, so here's the trick, right? If you keep a bottle of umai shochu in the kitchen, it'll keep forever. It'll keep, indefinitely. Not that you'll have it and you'll use it, so you won't have it indefinitely, but it will keep, and you can keep it in the kitchen. So we have a bottle of umai in our kitchen, and I use it all the time. I substitute the shochu for sake in my cooking.
One of the things that I always find fascinating is when distillers talk about these great spirits they're making being shelf stable, and I'm thinking they are shelf stable, just not on my shelf, because I love to drink great spirits. So that's fascinating. I didn't even think about the applications for cooking. I hope that you'll do some Instagram stories where you're cooking and showing us how to use shochu in our dishes.
Yeah, absolutely. I do it all the time.
Wonderful.
These days, probably once a week, I'm posting a food post.
Well, maybe you have a little time for a TV show or something. You can do your own cooking show.
Right.
All right. Well, I tell you what, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's always great chatting with you. The spirits sound wonderful. I can't wait to get that Roy's Demon. I'm a whiskey fan, so I'm already looking in the beer me portal for it right now.
And I'll wait back distance.
Sounds great. And yeah, please let us know when you have some more updates about cans and anything you have going on. This sounds really exciting, and I'm glad that you're part of Maryland's overall industry. This is really wonderful stuff for all of us.
Appreciate it, Jim. Thanks for having me on.
And for everybody watching, thank you for tuning in this afternoon. We know you have a lot to do. We know there are lots of opportunities before the rain comes in, but thank you so much. We appreciate you tuning in. For more details about what the Maryland Distillers Guild is doing on behalf of distilled spirits here in the state, please visit marylandspirits.org. Check us out on social media. We have Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and we're there. We are having a great time, and we look forward to talking to you all next week. Taka, have a wonderful, safe weekend. Please be safe getting your deliveries out today, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you, everybody.